My name is Juliana, and last month, at my brother's wedding, in front of 250 guests, he slapped me across the face. No warning, no whisper, just a flash of anger and a hand that left everyone speechless, including me. The music stopped. Champagne flutes froze midair. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stood there, stunned. Because the truth is, the slap wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was what led up to it. The entitlement, the pressure, the demands, the way my own family turned me into a villain just because I said no. No, I wouldn't hand over the mansion I worked my whole life for. No, I wouldn't give away my independence just to keep up the family illusion. So if you think this story is about a slap, it's not. It's about a line I drew, and the war that followed. I was never the favorite. Even as kids, Ryan was the center of every conversation, every photo, every "we're so proud of you" dinner. When he scraped his knee, Mom called 3 doctors. When I had the flu, she told me to stop being dramatic. At first, I thought that's just how things worked. Older siblings were supposed to be the dependable ones, right? But it didn't take long to realize that dependable was just another word for overlooked. Ryan got a car on his 16th birthday. I got a lecture about responsibility. Ryan got into a private college and my parents took out a second mortgage to pay for it. I got into a state school on a full scholarship and paid my own rent, books, and meals with 3 jobs. Still, I didn't complain. I kept my head down, stayed out of trouble, and built a quiet life of my own. I studied architecture, fell in love with old buildings, and worked my way into a firm that actually noticed what I could do. While Ryan bounced between startups and failed ventures, each one followed by a "Don't worry, sweetie, we've got your back." I saved. I budgeted. I said no to vacations, no to expensive clothes, no to temporary thrills. I wanted something real. And 5 years ago, I bought it. A restored 1930s mansion on a hill, overlooking the city. Every window, every tile, every stair creaked with history, and I loved it. But the thing about being the invisible sibling is that when you finally build something for yourself, people don't clap. They circle like vultures. And in my family, they started circling the moment Ryan announced his engagement. At first, it came wrapped in compliments. My mother, ever the queen of veiled suggestions, leaned over her mimosa at Sunday brunch and smiled. Wouldn't it be so poetic if Ryan and Rachel started their new life in a historic home, like yours? She didn't say the words, but I felt the pressure. You have something beautiful. They deserve it more. I laughed politely, changed the subject. But then Rachel chimed in too, in that breathy, performative voice she always used when she wanted something. "It's so beautiful up there, Jules. That curved staircase, it's like something out of a movie." I smiled, out of habit, but my stomach turned. They were circling at me house, a place I had spent years restoring, from rotting floorboards to the ivy I trained to grow just right over the front arch. Still, I thought maybe they were just admiring, until Ryan pulled me aside a week later at our parents' place. He leaned on the kitchen counter like he owned it. "So, what do you think about letting us move in after the wedding?" I blinked. "You mean rent a room?" He chuckled like I was being silly. "No, Jules, like the house." I stood still. "You're joking." "No, I mean, you're barely ever there. You live alone. And Mom said you always wanted to travel, right? This could be your chance." I stared at him. So now it was a favor to me? A gift? Even giving up the one thing that symbolized my freedom? "I'm not giving you my house, Ryan," I said quietly. He scoffed. "God, you're always so cold." That word again. Cold. Not private. Not independent. Just cold. This, From the brother who had his college paid for while I worked 2 jobs. The same brother who took our dad's car when he crashed his own, while I paid off mine with 3 years of side hustles. I was the quiet one, the helper, the backup babysitter when Rachel's maid of honor bailed. I showed up. I stayed late. I smiled. And now I was cold because I didn't want to be erased from my own home. I didn't shout. I didn't defend. I just stared, then turned and walked out the door. Later that night, I sat on my porch alone with a glass of wine, looking out at the stone walkway I laid myself over 2 summers. My fingers still remembered the weight of those stones, the sunburns, the bruises. I remembered painting the shutters, replacing the pipes, replanting every flower in the garden. The next morning, Rachel posted a countdown to forever on Instagram with wedding details, and in the background, a Pinterest board titled Our Dream Home, with a photo of my living room. I felt the heat rise to my face. They weren't just hinting anymore. They were planning. Still, I stayed quiet. Maybe they'd back off. Maybe the message was clear. But nothing about what followed would be quiet. Because when entitled people don't get what they want, they don't walk away. They escalate. And I hadn't yet realized how far Ryan and my own family were willing to go. The wedding countdown became a campaign. Suddenly, every family conversation revolved around the new beginning and how everyone needed to make sacrifices for Ryan and Rachel. Not once did anyone say my name, but every sentence felt like it was aimed at me. Aunt Marie, during cake tasting. It's so sweet when siblings step up for each other. My cousin let her brother move into her house after his wedding. She said it was the best decision of her life. My mother, Juliana, has always had such a strong sense of family. She knows what matters. They were baiting me publicly, politely. Rachel played innocent, but she dropped enough breadcrumbs for everyone to follow. We're looking forward to putting roots down, somewhere historic, grand, romantic. She said it in front of the florist, with a wink in my direction. It wasn't just words anymore. I found out Rachel had already sent save the dates that mentioned their future residence in a renovated Tudor estate in the hills. That was my house. They weren't even hiding it. I was livid, but I didn't explode. I asked to speak with Ryan. Alone. We met at a downtown coffee shop. He was 10 minutes late, wearing mirrored sunglasses and a smirk. I don't know what the big deal is, he said when I confronted him. It's just a house. No, I replied, steady. It's my house. I worked for it. I saved for it. You don't get to just name it yours in a wedding invitation. He leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms like a king denied his castle. Why are you making this difficult? Why are you acting like it's yours to take? There was silence. For a second, I thought I saw a flicker of guilt, but it vanished. Then came the line that made my blood freeze. Well, if you're going to be selfish about it, don't expect anyone to support you after this. There it was. Not a request. A threat. I realized then this wasn't about sentiment or practicality. It was about power. About rewriting the family narrative so that Ryan remained the golden boy, the one who always had a happy ending handed to him, and I remained the one who quietly gave things up. Except this time, I wasn't giving anything up. That night, I got a call from my mother. She didn't ask how I was, didn't mention the house directly, just said, "It would mean the world to your brother if you did the right thing." I stayed silent. She added, "I know you don't care about appearances, but we do. Everyone's watching, Juliana. It'll be humiliating if you don't make a gesture." A gesture? I laughed bitterly and hung up. That week, I didn't go to the rehearsal dinner, didn't send a gift. I kept my distance. But that didn't stop them. They assigned me a seat front and center at the ceremony, not as a guest, but as a prop, a living reminder of the sister who almost did something generous. And then came the wedding day. I put on my navy gown. Simple, elegant, and walked into the grand ballroom with my head high, even though I felt like I was walking into a battlefield dressed in silk. What I didn't know was that the moment of detonation was already planned. All it would take was one more. No, the ballroom was glowing. Crystal chandeliers, gold-trimmed chairs, champagne fountains. A 10-piece string quartet played something light and classical, as guests filtered in, all dressed in pastels and pride. I kept to myself, sat at my assigned table, smiled politely, nodded at familiar faces who didn't bother to say more than, "Oh, you look nice." Everything looked like a fairy tale, until you paid attention to the edges. The place cards had Rachel's last name already changed next to Ryan's. Their tables sat beneath a massive photo backdrop of them, kissing in front of my house. Yes, my house. Blown up, edited, decorated with faux vines and a home sweet home sign. I felt my fingers tighten around my glass. Then came the speeches. My dad raised a glass first, his voice warm, proud. He talked about love, legacy, and a new chapter that begins in a home filled with memories to be made. My mother followed, her voice trembling with emotion. "We're so proud of our children, and so grateful to see them settle into a place so rooted in family history, a place that already feels like home." There was applause. Cheers. I felt the blood drain from my face. The guests had no idea. They thought I had gifted them the house, that I had done this willingly. I stood up and walked to the back of the room, trying to breathe. Ryan found me a few minutes later. He had a drink in one hand and an infuriating smile on his face. "What are you doing?" I asked. He shrugged. "Enjoying the party? You should too. It's kind of your housewarming, isn't it?" My jaw clenched. "You lied to them. You let them believe I gave it to you." He leaned in, eyes hard. "And you let them think you weren't going to make a scene. Stick to that." That's when Rachel approached. She looked stunning, I'll admit it. But there was poison in her grin. "I just wanted to say thank you," she cooed. "Even though you never said the words, we know what this means to you. Letting go, making space. It's mature." My breath caught. The rage built behind my ribs like a storm. I looked at her, then at Ryan. "No," I said, loudly this time. "I didn't give you anything, and you don't get to rewrite the truth just because you printed a bunch of invitations." Rachel blinked. The guests around us turned, sensing tension. "You're ruining your brother's day," my mother hissed from somewhere nearby. Ryan stepped forward. "Can you just stop? Why do you have to make this about you?" "I'm not," I snapped. "You made this about me the second you tried to take what I built. You lied to everyone here. This house? It's mine. And it's staying that way." The room fell quiet. And then it happened. Ryan's hand came out of nowhere. The crack echoed through the air like glass shattering. People gasped. One woman dropped her drink. A child started crying. I didn't touch my face. I didn't run. I just stared at him, brother standing there with his chest heaving, rage pulsing in his jaw. And I said, very quietly, "Now, you've shown them exactly who you are." Then I turned and walked out of the ballroom, out of the wedding, out of their delusion, and into the storm that would follow. The next morning, my phone had 87 missed calls. My inbox was flooded. A mix of relatives, family, friends, co-workers, some concerned, some nosy, but the message was the same. "What happened? Are you okay? Did Ryan really slap you?" I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my camera roll, found the last photo I'd taken of the house before the wedding, the one with the sun hitting the windows just right, casting long shadows across the floor. I'd refinished myself. Then I opened my blog. It was private, had been for years. Just a quiet place where I documented the renovation process. Paint colors, before and after photos, receipts. thoughts, frustrations, dreams. But that day, I made it public. I added a new post. My house. My story. It started simple. This is the home I bought with my own money. This is the home I rebuilt with my own hands. This is the home my family tried to take from me because they thought I'd stay quiet forever. I included photos, documents, screenshots of texts from Ryan asking to take over the house, an invoice showing the full purchase amount from my own account, a scanned copy of the deed with my name and only my name on it. I didn't name names. I didn't insult. I just told the truth. By noon, the post had been shared 30 times. By the end of the day, over 20. Someone on Twitter called it the classiest takedown of entitlement you'll ever read. Others stitched together TikToks, pairing my photos with dramatic music. A lawyer even broke down why what they did wasn't just cruel, it bordered on coercion. My mother called again that night. This time, I picked up. Her voice was small. Juliana, you didn't have to embarrass the family like that. I didn't, I said. Ryan did. You did. All I did was stop protecting people who would never protect me. She sighed. But you made it public. You made it public the second you let them pose in front of my home like it was theirs. She went quiet. Then, you know your brother is hurting. Yeah, I said. He should be. Click. After that, the call slowed down, but the fallout had already spread. I heard Rachel lost a few brand deals. Turns out sponsors didn't like being associated with Slapgate. Ryan was suspended from his firm pending an investigation after a guest video of the incident went viral. And me? For the first time in my life, people were listening. Reporters reached out. Podcasts wanted to interview me. One magazine even asked if I'd write a column on boundaries and female ownership. But more than that, complete strangers messaged me to say thank you. This happened to me too, and I stayed quiet. Your story gave me the courage to say no. You didn't just defend a house. You defended all of us who were always expected to give. It was overwhelming, but it was also healing. Because for the first time, I wasn't just surviving. I was taking up space. Owning my space. A week after the post went viral, my father asked to meet. I almost didn't go, but something inside me, the part that used to crave his approval, said I needed to see this through. We met at a quiet diner halfway between our neighborhoods, the kind of place with faded leather booths and coffee that tasted like burnt toast. Appropriate, I thought, for a conversation like this. He was already seated when I walked in. No hug, no smile, just a slow glance up and a nod. Juliana. Dad. He cleared his throat. Your blog caused a mess. I didn't flinch. No, Ryan caused a mess. I just opened a window and let the world look inside. He bristled. You made your brother look like a monster. He hit me in public, Dad. I didn't make him do that. Silence. He looked down at his coffee. We never wanted it to come to this. Yes, you did, I said. You just thought I'd stay quiet like always. That I'd cave. That I'd give away the only thing I've ever owned outright because it's what I was raised to do. He looked up sharply. That's not fair. Neither is asking your daughter to surrender her home to the golden boy because he can't handle hearing no. His jaw tightened. He's your brother. And I am your daughter. That stopped him. For a moment, the room felt frozen. Just two people, tangled in decades of unsaid things. I was never enough for you, I said softly. Not when I paid my way through college. Not when I worked 2 jobs. Not even when I bought a house. You always saw me as less because I never needed you. But Ryan? He needed everything. So you gave him everything. He didn't deny it. Instead, he said, we thought you were stronger. I am, I said. But strength doesn't mean I have to carry everyone else's weight forever. He sighed. So this is it then? You cut us off? I looked him dead in the eye. No, I'm just done playing small so other people feel big. I stood up, leaving a 20 on the table for my untouched coffee. As I turned to go, he called after me. Juliana, what happens now? I paused at the door. Now? I said. Now I finally live, like I own something because I do. And I walked out. That night, I sat on the front steps of my house. It was quiet, peaceful, no party lights, no speeches, no eyes waiting for me to flinch. Just the home I'd built, brick by brick, and the silence I'd earned. For years, I thought love looked like sacrifice, that if I just gave enough, someone would finally see me. But that night, I realized something else. Sometimes, the boldest kind of love is the one you give to yourself, especially when no one else ever did. A week later, I got a message request on Instagram. Normally, I ignored those, but the name caught my eye. Elena Alvarez, editor-in-chief of Women Who Build, a digital magazine I'd followed for years. The message was short. Hi, Juliana. I read your post about your brother's wedding. You said what so many of us have lived, but never dared to say out loud. Would you be open to an interview? I stared at the screen for a long moment. Me? Interviewed? I had never seen myself as someone worth featuring. I wasn't famous. I didn't run a company. I just said no and meant it. Still, something told me to reply. Yes, I typed, I'm open. 2 days later, we had a Zoom call. Elena, sharp-eyed and warm-voiced, asked me questions that no one had ever cared to ask. How long did it take to save for your home? What was the first moment you realized you were being used? What would you tell your younger self, now that you've claimed your space? I answered everyone honestly. When the article went live a week later, I thought maybe a few people would read it. A handful of quiet nods. I was wrong. The headline read, "She bought her own house. Then her brother slapped her for not handing it over. Her silence wasn't weakness, it was strategy." It exploded. Within 24 hours, it had 100 shares. Comments poured in. I needed this today. Thank you for showing us what boundary setting looks like. My sister guilt tripped me for years. This story made me cry, and then it made me stand up. Your story just gave me the courage to tell my mum. No more. I cried reading them, not because of the attention, but because for the first time in my life, my pain meant something beyond me. The next morning, I opened my email to a subject line that made me pause. Property and Power, keynote speaker invitation. It was from a non-profit that supports women reclaiming housing and inheritance rights. They wanted me to speak. Me. I'd spent so long shrinking to fit other people's expectations, I never thought I could be heard. I said yes. 2 months later, I stood on a stage, real lights, real audience, real microphone. I wore a navy blazer I'd bought on clearance years ago, back when I still believed power had to look like something I wasn't. Now, it looked like me. I opened with, "My name is Juliana. My brother slapped me in front of 250 people because I said no. But this is not a story about violence. It's a story about reclaiming a house and a voice." The room went still. Then it leaned in. I talked about the guilt, the gaslighting, the long years of silent service, the way love was weaponized into obedience. And I ended with, "We're taught to believe that being a good daughter means saying yes. But sometimes, the bravest daughters are the ones who finally say, enough." Standing ovation. Later that night, as I walked back into my house, the one with creaky steps, and my name on the deed, I didn't feel small anymore. I felt grounded, expanded, real. 3 months after the wedding, the silence from my family was loud. No calls. No apologies. No carefully worded messages pretending nothing had happened. And for once, I didn't mind. Then one morning, I opened my mailbox and found a letter. The handwriting was my mother's. Inside was a folded card. No envelope, no stamp. She had driven here. The message read, "We overreacted. You humiliated your brother. But we're still family. Please come home for Christmas." I stared at it for a second. Then I smiled, folded it neatly, and placed it back in the mailbox with a sticky note that simply said, "I am home." That afternoon, I hosted a dinner. But not for them. I invited friends from my architecture firm, neighbors who had helped me shovel snow last winter, and a few women who'd reached out after reading my interview. We filled the dining room with laughter, the clink of glasses, and the kind of conversation that felt like sunlight. Someone asked, "Is this the house from that article?" I nodded. Every inch. There were still scuff marks on the staircase, and the kitchen tiles didn't match, but every detail was mine. And more than that, it was safe. Later that night, I stood barefoot on the porch with a mug of tea, watching snowflakes settle on the railing. I remembered the night Ryan slapped me, the gasps, the shock, the shame curling in my chest. But now, that memory had shape, and it had a boundary. One it couldn't cross anymore. A buzz interrupted my thoughts, a text, from a number I hadn't deleted yet. "Ryan, so this is who you are now? Cold, distant, unforgiving." I didn't reply. I just blocked the number. Because yes, this is who I am now. Not cold, not unforgiving, but clear. I am no longer the sister who gives away everything to avoid conflict. I am no longer the daughter who accepts crumbs and calls it love. And I am no longer someone who will trade peace for proximity. They try to shame me for keeping what I built. But now, I wear that shame like armor proof that I chose myself. One day, I wrote something on the inside of my closet door, in pencil. Something just for me. This house was never the problem. Thinking I had to earn my right to stay, that was. That night, I slept with the window open, the moonlight brushing against the sheets, and a quiet truth settling into the corners of my home. I had always been enough. I had just never been allowed to believe it, until I built the walls that proved it.